and we have Justin from H&S Knives here today to do a little podcast for the show. How you doing, Justin?
Man, I'm great. How are you?
Doing well. So H&S Knives, I have one right here. Bring that in the frame. You do a great job with these. I got this. How many years ago do you think it was? Two?
Yeah, I was gonna say probably 2 years ago.
Okay. Yeah. And since then, you've been doing pretty well, and the business has kept on going. You're still actively in it and coming out with some really cool stuff. Let's jump right in and talk a little bit about how you got started in this. How did you get started within knife making?
Yeah, man. I want to say that I started when I was like probably 15 and just kind of goofing off as teenagers do. And I had a campfire, that was kind of going out in our yard, and had basically been looking at YouTube videos where you like see these guys heating up metal. And
Sure.
I started making these little shanks and stuff out of like nails and railroad spikes, and
Yeah.
it kind of evolved from there. And it just kind of it was fun, and like I said, just kind of doing the normal teenager thing. And my buddy had a birthday coming up, so I decided that I was going to make him like an actual knife, something that wasn't just going to be a shank. And I got an old Farrier's rasp, and I ground down the bevels using an angle grinder, and it had this like crude knife that that I built, and I gave it to him, and he loved it. And my dad ended up showing a picture to one of his buddies at work, and he wanted one. I wasn't really expecting much out of it, but he wanted a knife, and so I made him one identical to the one I made my friend.
Okay.
And uh, my dad brought me home $100 bill, and it was just this really defining moment. Uh not that I was money hungry, but something that I did had value to someone, that they were
Right.
willing to pay $100 for it.
Yeah.
And I knew that, like, man, I want to develop this craft, and I want to continue down this path.
Huh. So at 15, you made your first sale essentially.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
So you have a couple of unique styles that I see on your Instagram. I think one of them's called, is it the Alpha something to that
Yeah.
effect? Okay. So when did you start making that style? Was that the first thing that you cranked out for your buddy?
No, man, not even close. So I slowly evolved. So I said that I made that first knife out of a farrier's rasp, and I probably made 100 more after that exclusively from farrier's rasp, simply because I was a 15-year-old kid. I mean, I didn't even have a debit card to be going and ordering stuff online.
Right.
So I was using these farrier's rasp until I had the point to where I could actually go and buy knife making steel. And
Sure.
then even after that point, when I did buy the knife making steel, you could scroll back through my Instagram and slowly see this evolution towards what ended up becoming the Alpha,
Yeah.
to where, I had these, like, I actually got one right here. I'll show you. So something that kind of quickly became my style is this finger choil right here, to where
Yeah.
like I just knew that when I held a knife, that felt really good in my hand,
Yeah.
and on a lot of my knives, you're going to see this upsweep right here on the spine.
Right.
And once again, that just developed very quickly in my style. And it just slowly developed over like probably 2 years to get to the point to where I have the Alpha that I do now.
Right.
And if I'm honest, that's still something that is evolving and slowly improving,
Right.
to where I'm trying to kind of figure out where I want to take it next.
Okay. So on that Alpha, you said you first put in a little bit of a finger troll down here on the bottom. This is not an Alpha. This is a
Right.
custom, right? You did this one almost like a
Yeah.
bird and trout knife, and then you let me pester you for a couple of weeks on how exactly I wanted it. Uh,
Yeah.
and by the way, while we're on it, this knife has worked its way through more hides than probably any other knife that I own in the last couple of years. I've killed between 5 and 6 deer every year, and then several turkeys in the last couple of years. And this thing does it all. So, how many custom pieces would you say that you do? Something like this?
So it's slowly becoming less and less as I
Yeah.
develop the alpha and those other models.
Right.
It used to be exclusively custom orders, but
Right.
as of right now, I would say it's probably uh, maybe 10 to 20% of what I do, to where I'm still making alphas. And then I have what's called the Nomad. And then I have a chef knife, which I call the Farmhouse. And
Right.
I crank those out in batches of like probably man 30 to 40 knives at a time,
Mm.
that I'm like having all those heat treated on hand ready to go. And then as people will come to me with custom orders, I will still process a few of those, just because it's a really good way to keep my skills sharp and to learn new things.
Yeah.
And it kind of helps me to be able to evolve the designs that I have,
Right.
by kind of pushing the envelope for myself.
Right. As you produce more, as you bring in more sales and stuff to that nature, you probably have a little less time to do the custom side of things, and you develop your own kind of critical style, and you're trying to perfect that. Is that pretty fair to say?
No, that's exactly it, man. That's
Yeah.
exactly it. And yeah, and I think I'll probably get to the point to where customs will be even less,
Right.
or to where I'll still make customs, but they're going to be more like my customs,
Sure.
where I will push the envelope for myself instead of for someone else. I love making daggers. I love making big chopping knives, and I know that I can come up with designs that'd be functional and sell, and kind of have limited runs, so to speak.
Right.
Um, I think
Yeah.
that'd be that. I think that's what I have in mind moving forward.
Yeah. So, what is the next step then? What is your next goal? How are you going to push into your next goal for your business?
Honestly, man, I think that the next step for me is going to be having a stocked inventory.
Right.
Um, because I'm getting to the point to where like I want to have a safety net, so to speak, where like if customers are coming and seeing my page, that there's not so much of a wait time. If they're going to
Yeah.
come and check out, my shop or check out my business, I want to have knives on hand that they can buy
Definitely.
and get in the field and test out. So
Yeah.
I think that's the place I want to push into for growth. Also, I would love to be able to start taking on like small media projects, because I always feel like I've always felt like H&S has been a really big catalyst for growth, like personally in my life. And it's been so much more than a knife company. I feel like that's something that deserves a voice, and deserves to be shared on the platform that I do have.
Yeah. Yeah. So, using myself as an example, I have a great deal of experience with this knife. I'm sure there are a lot of other guys out there like me across the country who are out there, and this is their go-to camp, camping, skinning, hunting knife. Um, this knife is, like I said, it's put miles on, but at the same time, in the off season, it sits in the kitchen right there with the rest of them. I was cutting up breakfast with it this morning, getting some bear sausage set out, and this thing can do just about anything. But you also have branched out into the farmhouse kitchen knife. You have several hunting knives. You've got some other stuff going on. So where does your alpha fit? That's kind of your prime piece. Where does that fit into outdoor living? What is the main purpose of that tool?
I'll be honest, man. I think that hopefully in the next couple of years, what I call the Nomad will become the flagship model, and the
Okay.
Alpha will maybe take a little bit more of a back seat. I'll tell you the reason why is because the Nomad is more functionally based, to where the Alpha is. A lot of the things that I designed in the Alpha are, yes, extremely functional, but it's kind of made to be a cool custom knife, to where,
Sure.
yeah, it's going to be able to function in like a camp environment or an EDC environment or a hunting environment. I mean, I've skinned out a lot of deer with alphas of my own, and friends and family have done the same. Um, but I would say that it's kind of that do it all knife that's going to look cool and kind of represent the brand. Um, would be my answer to that.
Yeah. Tell me this. So, I have kind of a flat spine on this. It's almost a drop point.
Yep.
I don't know if you'd call it that, but it sweeps down and it's flat across the back. Now, why does the Alpha have this ridge here? What was the point in that aspect of the design?
The original concept for me was I wanted to have a thumb stop.
Okay.
And so I've got a Nomad here and I've got an Alpha. So I'll show you kind of the difference and
Yeah.
the reason why I want the Nomad to become the flagship model. So this is the Alpha. And like I said, you've got that thumb stop right there. And I just like the way that that felt in my hand whenever I was using it, almost
Mhm.
like an EDC knife.
Yeah.
It gives you a little bit more control. Like I said, I like that a lot, but uh, I felt that like these thumb grooves on the back, this is something that I want to improve. I don't know that that's necessarily needed if you already have that thumb stop.
Yeah.
So with the Nomad, you have more of that smooth transition right there. And I think that the reason I want this to be the flagship model is because it simplifies things a lot
Okay.
to where you don't have to worry about all those grooves. Sometimes those grooves can catch on things and such
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Um, so the idea behind that upsweep is that it's going to be a thumb stop.
Sure.
Um, or the same thing, if you're skinning out game, I love this angle to where
Sure.
like if you're going to be caping something out that
Yep.
you can kind of hold your finger up there and run it along
Yeah.
the edge and you have a lot of control.
Yeah. Wow. Seeing you even hold it like that, I'm imagining in my mind how that design might improve over something like this. This is just your very typical kind of drop point, but it comes to such a fine edge there that allows this knife to be used on multiple game species. It is amazing on turkeys. It's my favorite knife
Yep.
to open up a turkey with. I can get
Yeah.
down in there. I hold it like this. Oh, there we go, most of the time, and almost like a pen draw my way through my cuts when I'm
Yep.
trying to get in the tendons and cut out the tenders, turkey tenders, and the breast meat out there. But for more gross motor movements, coming up through a deer, something to that effect, especially skinning down where you don't want to open up the paunch, trying to do skinless
Yep.
or gutless methods, I can see that sweeping edge and your thumb stop there really coming in handy. All right. So, Justin, you use your own stuff in the field. You're a big time hunter. I've seen you on social media taking trips and stuff like that out. Tell me a little bit about what is your main discipline? What's your main pursuit in hunting? Is it rifle hunting, backcountry public? Are you a trad bow guy? Where do you find yourself most of the time?
Man, it's got to be with a bow in my hand.
Mm.
And it don't really, I'm not too picky about, public or private. I hunt both. But I got to have a bow in my hand. Uh, I just can't get enough of it.
What is it about archery hunting specifically that you just have to keep coming back to that?
Whenever I pick up a bow, it's a lot harder. But at the end of the day, if I'm able to put something on the ground, I have this deep feeling of I belong here.
Sure.
That like I'm not just someone who transactionally comes and takes from the woods. Like I have learned a craft and have learned a skill.
Yeah.
And it's like I belong in the woods and in the wilderness and can function well in those spaces
Yeah.
because of my knowledge and because of the work that I've put in beforehand.
Definitely. How much of your season do you devote to traditional archery? Do you have a compound bow? How often do you hunt with that?
um, I sold my compound bow.
Wow.
I kept falling back on it.
Yeah.
So, which to be fair, I haven't shot a deer since I sold my compound bow.
Okay.
So
All right.
I'm in that struggle and that grind.
Yeah.
But um, I fully expect that in time that I'm gonna keep developing the skill sets that I have to where
Yeah.
like I'm going to become consistent with the stick bow. It
Sure.
just, I would not recommend the path I took to anyone. I think you'd be a lot wiser to, uh, you know, hunt with the compound, hunt with the traditional bow, and slowly wean yourself off. But I decided to go cold turkey, and now I'm too
Yeah.
far to quit or
Wow.
too stupid.
Yeah. It'd be kind of hard once you've sold it to go back. That might feel like a loss.
Yeah,
Yeah. Wow.
yeah,
You
for
got a
sure.
whole hog. Well, that takes dedication. That's not how I did it. I shot my first deer with a trad bow this fall. At the very end of the season, I dedicated the last month of our hunting season during open rifle to hunting with the trad bow. But prior to that, I had not really committed to it in any sense of the word. So I've hunted a lot with my compound bow over the last couple of years, hunted a lot during firearm season. The deer behind me here, these are all firearm deer with the exception of that little guy. Oop, right there. That little
Yeah.
guy. So I'll show you that one. That little 6 pointer
Nice.
right there, previous to this year, was my biggest archery buck um, ever. That would have been a little over 3 years ago. And I hadn't shot a buck with archery equipment until just this last fall. And shot an 8 point similar to what's back there behind me as well, um, with my compound bow. And so you trad bow hunt. Now, I saw on your social media, I think last year, did you go elk hunting?
Uh Kinda, man. So I had a connection out in Idaho,
Okay,
and I had basically just said, "Man, will you let me come and join you, and I will haul meat for you and follow you around the mountains." And
cool.
the guy's name was JT. He took me up on it immediately. Just a super good dude, and we've become close friends.
Yeah.
Um, and so I got to go out there, and I was out there for 11 days, followed him around the mountains, and liked it so much that I bought a tag with the plan to go back this year.
Hmm.
So,
Wow. So how did JT do on your trip?
well, you didn't get anything. The elk were extremely quiet. We had a couple of days where we would hear bugles, and they were either too far off or too
Yeah.
scarce for us to actually make a play on it.
Okay.
Last day, literally the last day, uh, we had found some, and we're like closing in pretty hard, but the elk all bailed down a hole, and we were out of time to where, like, if we went down there and actually shot one, we wouldn't have had the time to
Yeah.
get it back up and get
Yep.
me to my flight home
Right.
and all that. So
Wow.
it was it, it was a struggle for sure, but I loved it.
Yeah.
I love the camaraderie of being out there with those dudes, and I freaking love the mountains.
Yeah. That's got to be the way to get into it. Go with somebody who maybe knows a little better what they're doing. And at the same time, kind of volunteer yourself into it. So, I'm sure
Yeah,
you learned enough to make yourself a little more confident when you go out and when you
yeah.
actually do it for yourself. So I'm sure that was a great experience. Of all of the things that you've hunted, let's start off the question this way. What's your favorite game?
I would say that it's probably still whitetail, man.
Okay.
Even even after going out west and again to experience that, and it was awesome. But I just love the fact that uh we've got these critters in our backyard,
Yeah,
and they're so
really.
freaking smart, and like
Yep.
I don't they drive me crazy.
Yeah.
But to know that with at any point in my life that I'm 20 minutes away from an adventure out in a tree stand in the woods
Yeah.
in my home state, like I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. The availability of whitetails is probably what makes it's got to be the most popular thing that guys hunt today.
Yeah,
Anyways. Um, yeah. I mean, they're everywhere for one. There's some type of deer everywhere in the United States, I think. Even Alaska, it's not whitetails, it's blacktails.
yeah,
Um, I don't want to put my foot in my mouth, but there may be one state that doesn't have an active population of something deer.
right,
You have blacktails, you have coos, whitetails, mule deer, um, all kinds of stuff. I mean, they're throughout Canada too. You've got massive muleys,
yeah,
whitetail in Canada. They're an incredible animal. Down in Mexico, they're there too. Um, they're always kind of equated to me with like the largemouth bass. They're everywhere. You can find
yeah.
them. If you try hard enough, you'll find them, and they give us something to chase, which is a big bonus. I love them. So you and I share quite a bit in common. It sounds like, as far as our interests and whatnot, but we also share our faith in common as brothers in Christ. We're both believers. How how does your faith impact how you enjoy the outdoors, how you view the outdoors and what hunting is within the perspective of, it's a secondary thing for us, right? It's not our only love in life. There's priorities in everybody's life. But for us, our relationship with Christ has to be number one. How does hunting fall in line with that for you?
Honestly, I think for me, um, that getting to get out in the woods and having an understanding of this is actually like being out in the woods, like that is actually the world that we were created for.
Hmm.
Like that was the starting point, is
Right.
that you have this like extremely wild place that is filled with um beauty, and it's filled with risk, and it's filled with a little bit of danger, and just it tells us a lot about God,
Hmm.
and the kind of story that we were intended to live in.
Hmm.
And I feel like a lot of people miss out on that.
Yeah.
Um, sadly.
Yeah. When I get out into nature, into God's creation, you see that, the creatures are waking up. Then there's a sunrise. It seems like the woods is almost expanding and opening up as the heat of the sun hits it, and things are waking up and coming to life, and fog is rising or frost is melting, and there's a transition from death to life every morning. You know, you get to see, like what Genesis talks about, where we're given the sun, the moon, and the stars as our calendar, as a reference of time. And
Yeah.
there's a new day every day, right? And being out there, seeing how everything fits a role within God's purpose for creation is also, I think that's the main thing for me. Like, if I had any other way to experience that, maybe I wouldn't hunt as much, because at
Yeah.
the end of the day, how many times do we squeeze the trigger in a season? I
Yeah.
mean, squeeze the trigger, so to speak. How many times do you send an arrow? How many times do you have a successful hunt where you pack out more than you came in with?
Yeah.
Maybe a few times, but if you have 120 days in a season, you get 3 or 4 days. You get a few times that it works out. So where's the value in it if that's the only thing you're going for? Well, for me, being out there is a constant reminder. The Bible tells us that all of creation belongs to God. Psalm 24, 1, 24, 3. I'm not good with references. Psalm 24. The earth is the Lord's and everything in it. And it also talks about how everything speaks to its creator. It bears witness. It testifies to there's a creator that has put that in place in a very specific way that's not random, not by chance, but was designed. When I'm out in nature, when I'm hunting, when I'm fishing, when I'm hiking in the off season or scouting new properties, I'm being able I am witnessing what creation is testifying to.
Yeah.
So there's the greatest value in being in the outdoors for me.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. I
Yeah.
couldn't agree more. And I think that for me, it's, you live out these stories where you're going to have these experiences with animals, or you straight up you fail, you screw up, and so often these are parallel with things that I'm experiencing in my life.
Right. So one quick question to wrap everything up. Where can people find you, find H&S Knives? How can they get in contact with you?
Yeah, man. So I'm on Instagram. That would be like that's where I have the biggest presence, I would say, and that is hammer and spear underscore knives. I'm also on Facebook at H&S Knives. I think that's it. Been having some issues with the website just because I'm making knife content, so it gets shut down because they're weapons.
Right.
Uh, but just Instagram, Facebook, that's gonna be the best place to reach me.
Yeah, definitely. I really appreciate you taking the time out to have this conversation and record this little podcast with me. I'd love to have you back on at some point. Maybe we can touch base after we both do a little bit of hunting and share some more stories.
Heck yeah, man. That'd be awesome.
I'd really appreciate it. Thanks for coming out today. I think that was a great way to spend an afternoon.
Yeah, absolutely, man.